I'm back today reacting to my TikTok comments. If you didn't know I'm on TikTok, you can find me here. Let's dive in, let's see what questions I'm being asked and give you some responses. Ooh, this is a really interesting one. I was accused by Sainsbury's of sending in fake sick notes. Also, my doctor was accused of writing fake sick notes. That sounds like a fairly serious allegation to a doctor, of writing fake sick notes. I mean, even to an employee, that would be a fairly serious allegation. I was following their rules and sending in a stool sample to the doctors because I worked in a cafe. Okay, so presumably Sainsbury's rules. The doctor did the wrong test and had to send another sample. I lost half a stone in 2 days through stress and ended up leaving the job. Wow. Okay, this is quite a big one. In my career, I think I've come across like one occasion of a fake sick note. Can't even remember it that well. And it doesn't happen very often because there's not a huge amount of benefit in it. I guess if you're in a full pay profession, I tend to work with smaller employers who don't tend to pay full pay for long periods of time. I guess if you work in something like the NHS, this may be more of an issue, or local authority where you can have up to 6 months of full pay. There may be more of an incentive to submit fake sick notes, and I will admit I don't know what Sainsbury's sick policies are like or their sick pay is like to understand whether there would actually be an advantage to somebody doing this. But yeah, I mean, accusing somebody of not being sick is actually really hard to do. They are the decider of whether they are too sick to work. It's a fairly serious allegation and generally fairly difficult to prove, in part because a doctor is the employee's advocate. So doctors will write sick notes or fit notes, statements of fitness to work as they're officially called, for their patients, where the patient is saying, I'm not well enough to go to work. That's certainly been my experience. It's very hard to say that whether or not that's fake. I mean, who is to decide whether somebody is well enough to work other than the individual? Only they can decide really how their body works, which is why generally my advice to employers would be to manage sickness absence on the basis that it's genuine, on the basis that they are really too unwell to work. And if they are too unwell too often, and it's no longer something that's reasonable to accommodate as a business, then we would deal with the issue as one of capability. So are they capable of doing the job role because of their health? And that would be a matter of capability, and could well be a matter of going through a capability process of issuing warnings as a result of their regular absence, and potentially even getting to a dismissal because of their regular absence. So, I mean, obviously I don't know the details of this one to know what actually happened and to know whether there was something fake going on here or not. We also know that doctors make mistakes. The NHS is under huge strain right now. I think we have to bear that in mind as employers as well, that sometimes things can go wrong and that we have to accept that. If you want control as an employer, have a private doctor that you pay and works for you and does all these things for you, rather than relying on NHS doctors. I guess that would be a way, particularly if you've got a situation like this where you want certain tests to be run before somebody returns to work. But as soon as you start accusing somebody of lying, you kind of put them in the defensive. And that's where it becomes really problematic for me in terms of how we deal with absence, because it does make somebody want to defend themselves. You've got to be really clear. I mean, I know in employment it's balance of probabilities rather than beyond reasonable doubt, which is really important, but you've still got to be very clear. You've got to have some good evidence that somebody's actually lying to be able to accuse them of that, and particularly when they're absent, where it really is down to them to decide whether or not they are too sick to come to work. Now, if they're too sick too often, we can deal with that. We can deal with that as a capability issue, and that's going to be much easier to do. And it's why I say whenever someone's off sick, when you do like return to work meetings, when you take that phone call and somebody calls in sick, believe them. Believe that they are too sick to work. It's far easier to do that. You'll get a far better response from people by being supportive, having good quality conversations with people, and then deal with it if they're too sick too often. Otherwise, people put your name on the internet and discuss things like this in comments on TikTok, which is how it leaves people feeling, where they want to rant about it, about how unfair they feel that they've been treated. So absolutely, I think when we're dealing with sickness absence in particular, deal with it from the point of view of being supportive. And in my training, HR for non-HR managers and all my other management trainings, it's something I really do talk about, is about building up relationships outside of absence in order to be able to deal with issues when they arise when somebody is off sick, and also being supportive. It's so much better. You are going to get a far better response from people. You're actually much more likely to reduce absence, because if someone's accused of lying, they may as well start lying. Whereas if you're being really supportive, it's actually much harder to sit in front of somebody in a return to work interview that's being really supportive of you when you're lying than it is to sit in front of somebody who's accusing you of lying, puts you in the defensive and makes you sit there and argue your points. So don't know all the details of this particular case, but generally I would say when it comes to sickness absence, accusing somebody of lying should be the really, really rare occasions where we've got some really clear evidence. And I have had those in the past. I had somebody who's posted on Facebook all about their holiday to Spain whilst they were supposedly at home with a bad back, having told colleagues a few days before they went that they were going to call in sick with a bad back and go to Spain on their holiday. And of course the colleagues were a bit fed up about this and having to pick up that person's extra work, so went and reported it to management. So it does happen, people do lie, and we can deal with it, and we do catch them out in situations like that. But this one, from what they're saying here, I don't know, makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, I'll be honest. Sadly, I get a few comments like this, which is just examples of bad management. There's no two ways about this. I had a manager who came round to my house and hammered on the door for 10 minutes. No, managers, don't do that. That's just an example of bad management. An exception, and this is that I did have a case once, many years ago, where an individual's life was saved by the manager going round. They lived alone, they didn't turn up for work, it was out of character. We were actually their advisors and said, look, that they wanted to know if they could go round to the house and check on them, and we said, yeah, go for it, you are concerned. And the individual's life was saved as a result of that. So there are occasions where it could be appropriate to do this. Boundaries, it's about knowing the boundaries, it's about knowing what you should or shouldn't be doing. Yes, if somebody has just not turned up for work and you know that they are on their own and you know that there is a risk, this is out of character, something's not right, by all means, either go round there yourself or contact the police for a welfare check. These are all reasonable things that an employer could do in the right situation. If somebody's called in sick or somebody's provided a sick note, categorically no, do not go and start banging on their door. Absolutely not. Write to them, try and get communication that way. We could phone them. It would be reasonable to phone somebody and say, how you doing? Just checking in. And when you do speak to somebody, also agree when you're next going to. Don't leave them in limbo that at some point you're going to phone. Like, so they're constantly sitting there like anxious the phone might ring, not really knowing. When you do speak to them, you do have that conversation. So, okay, in 2 weeks, in a month, I'll give you a call again. So they know roughly when that call is going to come, or set a really specific date and time if that works for you. But it's about boundaries. It's about knowing what isn't appropriate in a particular situation based on a particular illness or situation that individual is in, and what we should be doing. Very rare, very, very rare. As I say, I've come across once in my 20 years where this worked out okay, and where actually we did say, yeah, do it. We think this is the right thing to do because of that particular situation. Most of the examples I'm getting in my comments are bad managers. You're not going to get the best out of people. Regardless of managing sickness absence, you are not going to get the best out of people if they feel like they're going to get treated like this at work. And that's it. And this is where, say, training for people, I would say it over and over again, but it's so important that managers get training and know what they can and what they should be doing in all of these situations. So we're not trying to make those judgment calls which we might be making from a point of view of feeling a bit frustrated about having to being a person down and the impact on us, and that all has an impact on our emotions. We need to make sure we're not making emotional decisions. Forgive the quick interruption to this video, and I will keep it really quick. If you've liked this video, found it useful, you can of course hit the subscribe button, but I also want to tell you about our digital courses. In our digital courses, I go into much more detail. The videos are very similar to these. It's me, it's on camera, but there's also downloads, there's sample forms, there's a few sample policies in there as well. All the things that you need to know. We've even got some coming where we've got live classes as well. So check out our digital courses. Details are on screen now and in the description below. Look forward to seeing you on one of our courses in the future, and in the meantime, I'll let you get back to the video. Okay, so comment on probationary period says, when they're so desperate for staff that those on the probationary period are thrown straight into the thick of it. And I did actually respond to this one. It does happen, sadly. Unlikely to work out in the long term. We do know that if people have not had a good onboarding experience, they're going to leave fairly quickly. It's going to increase your turnover of employees, which is going to make your staffing problems worse. You're going to have this cycle, this vicious cycle. Also, this comment was placed on one of my videos about probationary periods. Generally, when I'm talking about probationary periods, I'm saying I don't like them. I don't think they're a good idea, and I think this comment kind of proves why in some cases. There's a whole host of reasons why I don't like them. I won't go into that here. I've got other videos on probation. But if you're going to throw people into the thick of it, if they're going to start on day one and you're just going to expect them to hit the ground running and just get on with it, and you don't think that there's a learning sort of period, then even more, why have you got a probationary period? They're just getting on with the job from day one. They're diving in and being part of the team. Why are you telling them they're on trial? It doesn't make any sense to me. When somebody starts, the key thing is welcoming them into the business, giving them the right training, the right support to be able to do the job really well. Get them settled in. It is really worth the investment, because especially if you've got employee issues, because if you don't put that investment in right from the beginning, just going to perpetuate the employee issues that you've got. You've probably got other members in the team who are moaning about being there. They probably don't want to be there. Their moaning is going to get to this new member of staff, and they've been thrown in the thick of it. They're not feeling happy. They're feeling out of their depths. They're feeling like they haven't got the right support. They're feeling like overwhelmed, because it's huge. Walking into a new job is huge. Everything is new. And then all these other colleagues are telling them how awful it is to work here, and moaning about the boss, or moaning about the hours, or moaning about how busy they are. Whatever they're moaning about is going to rub off on this new person, as well as everything you've just done. So yeah, it's not going to end well, this one. And I get why you want to do it. I get why you're so desperate for this person to start. You're like, yeah, just put an apron on, get on and do it. Like, you can sell it. This has happened to me in hospitality years and years ago. Doesn't work. Don't do it. You won't be keeping them. Stop. Get off the treadmill, support them. I've got a free guide to onboarding. Get in, download that. Get this right. Absolutely get this right from the start, and it will make a huge difference to your team. If you've enjoyed this video, check out my other videos, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.